Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on mysterious and weird, true stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Case file number 768, written by Weeeoooooo, the Ethereal Pup. My husband and I live in a small, work-in-progress cabin in the woods on an acreage in Atlantic Canada with 2 parrots, a rabbit, a senior citizen cat, and 2 absolutely rambunctious dogs. My husband just can't say no to something fluffy that is in need of a home. Cleaning up after this zoo is quite the daily effort. As I was going about my chores today, I decided to toss the dogs outside for a while so I could suck up the previous day's layer of dog fluff without them declaring war on our vacuum machine, as their hatred for the vacuum is quite passionate. Once the dogs were outside and merrily jumping around in the mud puddles, I got to work on the floors. I did a really thorough vacuum job today, even getting on my hands and knees to suck up the fluffies that were nesting underneath the tables and furniture. After I wrapped up the chores, I went to retrieve the dogs. The dog run is accessible by a doggy door that is off of a room that is completely separate from the room I was cleaning. As I already mentioned, the cabin is a work in progress and entirely unfinished, and the room with the doggy door is the newest room to be added onto the build and is even more unfinished than the rest. I entered this room and shut and latched the door behind me, as I knew that the soggy dog stampede was going to be fierce. I planned on letting the pooches dry off in that separate room while I went to town to run a couple errands. I opened the doggy door and the 2 canines bounded into the room and began to shake and pounce and play off with all their doggy enthusiasm. They were soaked and muddy and seemingly more than content to hang out in this room, so I undid the latch on the door that led to the main room and carefully opened a crack just enough to squeeze my body through so that the dogs could not follow after me. I closed the door behind me and latched it shut, picked up the water bowl and reached for some toys so that I could toss them into the side room to keep the dogs entertained while I was gone. As soon as I entered the main room and looked down, however, I absolutely froze. There were fresh, muddy paw prints on the floor that I had just cleaned. I could still hear the dogs bouncing around on the other side of the door in the room I had just locked them into. They did not follow me, and yet here I was looking at fresh, muddy paw prints that were not here a moment ago. I just cleaned everything. Perhaps there was mud on the bottom of my flip-flops, and I had made the prints myself? I lifted my feet one at a time, and the bottoms of my flip-flops were totally clear. The prints were not from me. Then I lifted my gaze and was horrified to see that the paw prints continued all down the length of the room from the kitchen to the front door of the cabin, where they stopped suddenly, as though a muddy dog had taken a single run through the length of the room and then completely vanished. The prints only went in one direction. There were no smudges of mud or backwards prints to indicate a muddy dog changing direction in any way. Just a straight line of fresh, wet, muddy prints, and then nothing. They weren't there just moments before. My dogs had not entered the room and were still locked up in another room. There were no other creatures in this room and no possible entrances for rogue invaders. I have no explanation. I don't understand. I feel like I'm either losing my mind entirely or else in an alternate timeline. One of the dogs slips past me into the clean room and then runs down the floor. And somehow, the timelines bled together for a moment, just long enough for alternate dimension dog to leave the muddy paw prints and then vanish back into his own timeline. Case notes for file 768, the Ethereal Pup. Indeed, this is a weird one. All evidence points to the notion that your dog, one of them, phased through the wall. One key detail that you do mention is that there's no returning paw prints, which means that even if your dog phased through, one of them did, they just vanished. They didn't even return back and phase through again to the room where you left them in. So, that's weird. They phased through the door, walked a few steps, then vanished and teleported back into the room? I got nothing. Maybe it is as you say. Somehow you partially glitch, or your room partially glitched into a different timeline. And in that timeline, the dogs were just roaming free in the main room, and they left paw prints. and then your reality fades back in. I have heard of people witnessing a different universe, but all the time when that happens, it's only perception. It's them being there, not the universe being in their universe. In this case, because the paw prints remained, presumably, you weren't just witnessing the other universe, it was actually there. If that's what happened. Outside of that, I don't know. Because, yeah, there's plenty of stories of pets phasing through material, through solid objects, but they don't just vanish after. That part doesn't make sense to me. Case file number 769, written by Morsoto99, Mr. Buehler's Final Steps. When I was a kid, I lived in a really tall house. There was a central set of stairs that went 4 stories high that the house was built around. My parents' room was on the 4th floor, while I lived on the 3rd floor right next to the stairs. My childhood dog, this mutt named Buehler, would climb up the stairs most nights to go sleep with my parents, while occasionally sleeping with one of my siblings on the floor below me. Anytime Buehler was walking around the house, you could hear the clacks of his paws on the wooden planks. He would never head up at a consistent time either, going from as early as 8 to as late as midnight. Fast forward, it's July 2014. I'm 17 and Buehler has just passed. The house felt really empty for a while. We had gotten so accustomed to his clacks that it was just odd not hearing them. But they kept on coming. For about 2 weeks after his death, I, along with my parents, heard Buehler climb the stairs every night. The sound was unmistakable. I had heard this noise for years on end. It was the same pattern, the same rhythm as Buehler in life, except there was no Buehler anymore. There was no weather pattern going on. The house wasn't especially creaky, and we didn't have any other pets than him. It was never at the same time every night either. When it became late July, we stopped hearing Buehler's clacks. I asked my parents if they had heard the noises, and they agreed. It had to be Buehler coming up the stairs. I will say I never went to see what it was, just because I knew definitely what it was. It was Buehler going to sleep with my parents. Case notes for file 769, Mr. Buehler's Final Steps. I am sorry for your loss. Losing a pet is obviously not quite as horrible as losing a very close family member, but still, it stays with you for months, if not years. Recently, my roommate lost one of his cats. She was very old, and she seemingly just died. She was roaming outside and found her later on in the yard, and, it's very painful. It really is. I was the one that found her, so I told them, and, it's never news you want to bring to someone. There is something that makes a lot of sense to me about this, in that it's repetition of routine. So if spirits are echoes, fragments of the soul of a person or pet that passed away, the idea that they would repeat themselves in the past actions that they normally took, going about and living their day as it used to progress, or maybe specific actions that they would always take every single day. Like for me, I wake up and immediately I take a shower, drink an entire glass of water. Just seems to make sense, healthy. That's a routine. So if I died and passed away and a fragment of my soul was left behind, maybe someone would hear the shower start or something in the morning. Scalding hot, by the way. That's the only way to take a shower. So yeah, that part makes a lot of sense to me. Even if it's a pet, I don't think that makes a difference. I think routine is something that will bind you to the world. I like to think of it as ripples in a pond. We are the stone that fell in the pond. The ripples are our lives, the choices we make, the effect we have on the world. But even when the stone is gone, those ripples keep flowing outward. They do fade over time, and those are the fragments left behind. There's a pattern to them, and it keeps repeating, until eventually it finally fades out forever. But it's just the wave, returning to the ocean. Case file number 770, written by Deus-system-failed, a subway that deleted time. I'm an EMT, so every second counts. Thanks to those who came before me, we are guaranteed a 30 minutes paid lunch break with 10 minutes to pick it up. My start time for the pickup window was 8:23 p.m., 2023 military time, and I went to Subway while my medic had a lunchbox. I ran in and ordered my sandwich, turkey club with light mayo, spinach, and banana peppers. I had it toasted and paid. I ran out expecting to only have maybe 1 or 2 minutes remaining until my lunch started, but was surprised to find it was still 8:23 p.m. I asked my medic and she said I was only gone maybe 30 seconds and she thought it was a pickup. I told her it wasn't and I was gone for a few minutes at least. She just thought I was messing with her. I'm eating my sandwich now just wondering how it was made in less than a minute, including paying. Case notes for file 770. A subway that deleted time. This does seem like a time glitch. As rare as they are, especially when there's no clear possible way that it could be aliens involved. I mean, even then often it's not even time loss, it's just memory warping. Sometimes there is time loss involved with alien abductions, especially traveling distances you shouldn't be able to. But in regard to this, there's no aliens. It's definitely just some weird time glitch involving Subway, because I know, I go to Subway all the time. Usually these days I just order it online and it's ready to go when I get there. However, in the past, I mean, when I would just go in and order, it would take at least, even if no one was there and I could place my order immediately, I would, especially if I get it toasted, I mean, just that alone is 30 seconds, 20, 30 seconds, not to mention the building of the Subway, telling them what you want, getting to checkout, them folding the sub in and wrapping it up, the checkout, paying. There's absolutely no way it could take less than less than 2 minutes, I would say. Would be the fastest. That'd be like a world record. Get the Guinness people over. So yeah, this is definitely a very small but very inexplicable time glitch. It's also peculiar because a lot of weird things seem to happen at Subway. One time I did have the strangest, most intense sensation of dread I've ever felt. Just walked into the Subway. Felt like I just had to get out. I don't know why. I don't think anything happened there. I didn't really check, but there's no news like mass murder happened at the Subway or something. But yeah, I just went in, felt dread, had to leave. Maybe it was just a panic attack. I don't think I get those, but I guess that's possible. So I don't think it's really a glitch. I don't think it's related to Subway. It's just one of those odd coincidences. Perhaps because I'm always going there.